Your warnings were right that she was going to cut and run from Britain, that she was going to cause division in the royal family. So let me ask you this, Samantha, first. Are you surprised that Meghan has quit Britain and quit the royal family so soon after marrying Prince Harry?
That's exactly it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it happened after a while, but so soon, especially so soon after Archie is born. And, amidst so much going on in the world with Brexit, with everything politically happening, it just seems to be very disruptive timing, and perhaps some more diplomatic planning could have gone into it, working her way up and growing within her duties in the royal family would have been more appropriate at some point to decide to do that after, certainly fulfilling some of those duties, such as, let's say, the patronage of the theater. I wondered what happened with that. And I wasn't privy to everything that they were planning to do, but it certainly seems as though the boat was capsized, and I'm sure it was, somewhat shocking and hurtful to the British royal family, of course.
So Samantha Markle, why does Meghan seem so unable to keep any relationships going over a long period? There's been features written here that seem to suggest she's got the 2-year itch. She'll commit to a project or a person for a couple of years. Does she get bored?
I don't know that it's necessarily boredom. I think, as adults, when we take on any role, we put everything on the scales. We assess our needs, our wants, our goals and objectives, and our, the requirements of those things. And we sort of look at whether or not it's feasible given all of those things together. And so I feel as though perhaps she jumped into it because of the glamour and because of, let's say, the fairy tale of it all, without looking at the reality of the challenges, the duties and roles, and deciding whether or not that was a good fit for her personality and her short and long-term goals.
Now, why Canada? What did Meghan previously tell you when you were speaking about Canada?
Well, this doesn't really pertain to that. I mean, I somewhat feel as though, I understand that raising a child in a serene, beautiful, green environment somewhere away from the public eye, could be something that they wanted, but that wasn't part of the plan, seemingly, when, before they had Archie, and, at least, of course, from our media perspective, that never came up.
The thing is, Sam, that's really interesting to me, though. You say away from the public eye, but we've obviously spoken many times in the past, right? And Meghan's background. And I also have reported on Meghan now for a number of years. Meghan has never wanted to be someone, has she, who wants to escape the public eye. Her goal was always becoming very famous.
Well, exactly. And, it's such a contradiction in terms on, one side of one's mouth to claim, the goal of being private and having a quiet life, while at the same time, pitching Disney and going to red carpet events and planning a global empire with products and, millions of dollars, an estimated $400 million in, just a 5-year period. It just seems very grand, placed next to a quiet private life. The two don't really intersect. I know for some people they can, but I feel as though the need for privacy came at a time when there was a lot of public scrutiny and criticism, and it was then and only then were those issues raised. For example, when they were prancing around, in the very beginning of all this, and things were very cozy and friendly, then, nobody was criticizing her then, and it was comfortable, and there was no, I want privacy. There was no, the world stage was theirs, and it seemed like they were enjoying it. So,
and the Meghan that you knew when she was an actress wanted to be famous.
Well, of course, I think that was her goal then, and perhaps, as we get older, I'm not defending her, but as we get older, or she did, perhaps she wanted a family, and she at one point may have thought, it's time to have a little bit of a quiet life, but it doesn't seem the appropriate time as you enter the duties of something as high profile and structured as being a member of the royal family. So that perhaps should have been considered much earlier, and maybe if she didn't dive in head first, it would be less disruptive and hurtful to so many.
Now, of course, Samantha, you and Meghan share a father, Thomas Markle.
Yes. Yeah.
Meghan has decided to sever her ties with your dad altogether. How's he coping with that? Because regardless of the rights or wrongs, that's a pretty devastating thing for any dad to have to go through. How's he coping with it?
It's crazy. It's really crazy to me, paralleled with this now exodus and, the idea that they didn't like the media talking about them. They don't like the media talking at all. They want this privacy. And yet, allegedly, we've heard that some mudslinging directed at the royal family, and they've been talking to the press allegedly, or their friends have, by report. And so, this idea that, if we don't get what we want, we're going to do an explosive interview. Now, mind you, we don't know how much is believable in the media. We weren't privy to those conversations, but that's what it seems like. And so the very thing that she allegedly was willing to disown a father who had given her everything for, she herself is doing to the royals, and going so public about it, and being willing to do an explosive interview, and allowing her friends, they didn't like being, quote, abused in the public and called names, yet they sat and watched, an encyclopedia of names flung at our family, and now the royals, words such as toxic, I think, are highly inappropriate, given that she was given an incredible opportunity and welcomed into their family. So it all doesn't make sense, and it feels as though, perhaps the royal family is experiencing the same sort of hurt and shock and unjust treatment that my father is.
And Thomas hasn't, and you haven't heard from Meghan in a number of months.
No.
And he hasn't met baby Archie?
No.
Do you hope, Samantha, now that she's closer, now that she's back in North America, that there might be any way for a reconciliation between herself now and the Markle family and her father, Thomas?
Well, so much time has elapsed, so many holidays, Dad's birthday, the heart attack, so much has happened. And I feel as though if it hasn't happened by now, I don't think proximity is going to be, bridge the gap anymore. Because we're not just talking about being across the pond. When you're looking at people who can hop on a jet and go to Paris for lunch, or go to the United States for lunch, or go to red carpet events, she has already been in the United States, and she could have visited him at that time. So being closer, really, I don't think is going to change things. And she would, the family has extended olive branches. My dad was very public about saying he wanted communication with her. He was very consistent about that. And at no time did she reach back. So it seems as though others are being diplomats and humanitarians, and she really is not. When there is a chance for conflict resolution, you have a meeting of the minds and you make it happen.
Is Thomas prepared to testify in court for the Mail on Sunday in London in the legal case that Meghan has taken against that newspaper?
Of course he is, because he has not only a right but a moral obligation to present the truth, and the truth as he experienced it. And what is so profoundly glaring to me is that, this letter had been allegedly shared with 5 of her friends and in People magazine. So She didn't claim breach of privacy then.
And he had kept it
and
secret
God,
for a number of months, hadn't he?
correct. And, as we all know, People magazine is the public forum. There is no right to privacy once something has been released in the public forum. And so the letter, to my dad, it was odd because I recall a letter on January 13th. Matt Haig of the Daily Mail wrote the article, and he was, boasting about her elegant calligraphy, the best calligraphy in the world. Well, that was a private letter.
She's certainly not taking him to court, is she?
And she raised no opposition there, and my dad did the same thing. He shared
and you believe, you believe and Thomas believe that the letter is now owned by him. Is that correct? And that's why he had a right to share it.
Of course, if someone sends you something and it lands in your U.S. postal mailbox, it is your property. In the United States, if anyone goes to your mail and takes something out of it, they're committing a felony, a federal offense, because that is federal mail. It is your property. And so if she wrote it with the intent of him being the recipient, she didn't say, I'm loaning you this. It's my property. I have a copyright. You can read it, but you don't own it. Maybe she should have run a disclaimer. Because without a disclaimer, it's his property that she meant for him to have. Not send this back to me. It's not yours. It's a bit ridiculous.
Now, Samantha, you're also very angry, aren't you, about the fact that Meghan has, in your words, told some porcupines about the support that she received from your father growing up. For example, she gave a speech, I believe, in Fiji, saying that she had to fund her own college education, whereas you claim, and Thomas claims, that he actually paid the university fees.
Oh God, that's not a porcupine. That would be a little sandwich compared to the Mile High Club sandwich that it really is in terms of a lie. From day one in the Little Red Schoolhouse kindergarten all the way through her last day at Northwestern University, there were no family members, quote, chiming in. He paid every penny of her education, her housing, every expense all the way up. And, to hear that, I didn't understand why, it's like pulling something out of a hat and just filling airspace.
So do you think the British public, Samantha Markle, should trust the words of the Duchess of Sussex?
Well, when you look at something as important as acknowledging the blood, sweat, and tears that parents around the world pour into their kids' education, to not only deprive my father of that glory and that praise and that gratitude, but it also deprives people worldwide who really, really love their children and want this and put so much into it. It deprives them also of that glory. And so a speech that's heard around the world should be accurate. It should be honest. It should be factual. And I think, the greater likelihood is in logic, that if one thing like that is a lie, it's also likely that so much else is a lie. And, I think there is a breach of trust that's happened. Why lie about something like that rather than give someone accolades for it? It would take nothing away from her. And he was entitled to it. It was true. He paid for everything.
A lot of the supporters of your sister have tried to claim that Meghan has been subjected to racist treatment and racist coverage in the media. What's your take on that, Samantha?
Okay, I'm going to say, and I've seen a lot of racial mudslinging. It really, it's very hurtful, very sad to me because we are a biracial family. My father married an African-American woman. He loved Doria, married her, so he's clearly not a racist. But for the public to use race as a trump card when there is disagreement or criticism raised about my sister that has nothing to do with race really felt like a cheap shot. It's something that, easily raises the hackles of the public. It's easy to escalate, almost to riot mentality on an issue like racism. And at no time, and I watched very carefully because I would get very defensive if I saw racist comments about my sister. And in fact, I had defended her on Twitter several times, but nobody ever mentioned that. I'm very sensitive about the issue of race. And so I looked in the media, I looked at things the British royal family had said, and at no time did I ever see anything racist directed at her. And so I felt it was something that was a construct on social media that they wanted to use as a defense because they were grasping for straws and could find nothing else to defend behaviors that were taking place with the public watching.
Well, absolutely, Samantha, because when your sister joined the royal family, this entire country celebrated. We thought this was a great moment, and it was a great moment of bringing different ethnicities together and celebrating change in the family. So I agree. I think it's a cheap shot too.
I mean, exactly. Look at the choir and the reverend. Look how beautiful the wedding was. There was no racism. In fact, it was.
And the country celebrated. The world celebrated, in fact. Now, look, I have to ask you finally, Samantha, though. Some people are suggesting that there could be concerns about the pressure on Meghan in terms of her mental health. Is there anything that you've seen that has worried you about Meghan? I know you are estranged, but she is still your sister. Are you worried about Meghan? Is there anything that concerns you about her at the moment?
Well, this word estranged I take issue with, too. That's like saying I'm estranged from my brother just because we live across the continent from each other, or I'm estranged from my aunts and uncles because I haven't seen them when I was small, because lives keep people busy in the United States. And you talk on the phone, you can't always get together. Life can be busy. I can't stand the word estranged. It seems so pointed. But when we're talking about mental health, being human is very difficult. And I know she's been under a lot of pressure, but clearly she has made decisions that have created a lot of these circumstances. And one way to moderate some of that stress perhaps would be to make better decisions, to be more careful of, that her actions meet her words, especially in a royal position when you have the eyes of the world watching and relying on you to fulfill what you said you're going to do. So if it's foolhardy to assume those roles and then, I can't handle it. Well, you knew this going in. You had a choice. You could, do the math and look at whether or not you can handle it based on your skills and your energy level. And if you fall short and let people down, then it really is on her, because she's an adult, she's intelligent, and you can't jump into something like this sloppily and without, careful study and understanding. So,
Samantha, do you still love your sister, Meghan?
I'm going to say this as with any member of my family. I do believe in unconditional love for family, and, you give people chances, and you hope that you extend olive branches, you work on problems as they rise, and you hope that, we can all come together and they come back and they work on whatever the issue or the challenge is. I love her. She is my sister. I'm not an estranged stepsister, as everything unimaginable has been floating around out there. But I really don't like how she is treating family. I don't like how she's treating the royals, and I think that trickles down into everything. I feel as though the responsibility is when you claim to be a humanitarian, and if she can go out to homeless shelters and she can go to different places, senior citizen centers. Well, okay, if she can do that as a humanitarian in front of camera, she can be that humanitarian with family off camera. And it's just as easy. It's not hard to make a phone call and to extend kindness and compassion. And so I don't like that she is avoiding that. And apparently now the disrespect and the shocking treatment of the royal family, I think, is horrible. I love her, but I can't say I like her. That hurts a bit. It's sad.